The following podcast contains spoilers for Highlander. You have been warned, because there's only one.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of KFR News Radio. This is your host, Glenjamin Bunn, along with your host, Miguel, the only one, Magusto.
There can only be one Miguel Magusto. And somehow Sean Connery is Egyptian.
He is an Egyptian
From
Spanish
Spain.
peacock.
He's an Egyptian Spaniard. Go fucking figure. How you doing, Glenn?
I'm living the dream, baby. You know why I'm so happy. I got to see you this week.
Yes, you did. We got to see each other. We watched some movies. It was glorious.
It was probably the best 5 hours I've ever spent in my whole life. I don't even need the rest of the time. I've got what I needed. I can move on.
Yes, indeed. But instead of moving on to the death, let's record this here podcast, shall we? And why don't you start with what movies you watched last week?
Well, this is going to be super, super easy because we watched them together.
Oh, Glenn, I'm so disappointed.
Me too. But I got to see you.
You did. I'm not disappointed in that. Just disappointed in how many movies
I'm going to let you
watched.
go ahead and plow through yours, and then we'll talk about the ones that we equally saw together.
Okay. For me, the two that we watched were both rewatches. So, but everything else was completely first time. Well, actually, I also watched Batman. I'm saying that getting this out of the way because I tend to forget them. I tend to forget rewatches if I don't get them out right away. But I watched Batman because I needed to watch Batman as a refresher, and you'll see why in about 6 movies. Then I watched a total of 10 movies, including Highlander.
Okay.
First watches 13 if you include the 3 rewatches. The first one I watched was The Trial of the Chicago 7, which is about protesters who were unrightfully or injustifiably put on trial for treason and shit like that after
the new Netflix one, right?
Yeah, with Sacha Baron Cohen, Eddie Redmayne, John Carroll Lynch, who's my boy John Carroll Lynch, a whole bunch of people in there. Joseph Gordon-Levitt's also in there. If you really want to get angry because of injustices, watch that movie. But it's really good, but it will make you angry from injustices and how fucked up that whole situation was. Obviously, it's a movie, so it's probably not 100% accurate, but it's told in a very compelling way, and I don't doubt that the heart of it is truthful, with just minor changes.
Yeah.
Then I watched a film called In the Tall Grass with Patrick Wilson and a bunch of no-names. It is based off a Stephen King book, horror movie about a bunch of people who get stuck in tall grass and they can't find their way out, and the tall grass is magical somehow. It's okay. It's a fine movie. Patrick Wilson's definitely the best part of it, above and beyond.
Is.
Like, so far above beyond everyone else. But yeah, it's a solid movie. You can check that on Netflix if you want to watch it. Then I watched War Games from 1983 with Ali Sheedy and Matthew Broderick. Not in that order. Matthew Broderick's the star of it.
Yeah.
But it's, if you don't know what War Games is about, even I knew what War Games was about before I even watched it. So I'm not going to help you out there. But War Games, I really I really enjoyed it. It's a fun 80s movie, which I typically don't care for. 80s movies, just because cheesy.
They are the cheese.
They are the cheese. Then I watched a Criterion Collection film, French film called La Haine, which is French for hate, or the hate specifically, and it's starring a young Vincent Cassel. Actually watched it the day that we watched one of our movies, also starring Vincent Cassel.
That's kind of hilarious.
Yeah, and it's a really good movie. It's about these 3 guys who kind of live in the projects, and it's right after a night of riots due to police brutality and just kind of the aftermath of all that. And it's really, really good. I highly suggest people check that out if they get a chance. I'm sure among other film snobs, I am late to the party on this one because it is. I mean, it's a Criterion Collection, so it's a classic. But it's incredible. I highly suggest it. Then I watched Highlander. We'll get to that in a minute. Then I watched Batman Returns, which is why I rewatched Batman, because I hadn't seen Batman in a while. Had never seen Batman Returns, just one of those movies. I saw enough of it and just never watched the whole thing.
It's the one with Danny DeVito and Christopher Walken, right? Yeah.
Danny DeVito as Penguin and Christopher Walken as Max Schreck, which, for those of you... I don't know if Max Schreck is a character in the Batman universe, but
I don't
Max Schreck
necessarily think so.
Max Schreck is the name of the actor who played Nosferatu in the silent film from the 20s. I don't know if that was done on purpose, but I know Tim Burton takes a lot of his inspiration from German expressionist films of the 20s. So I would not be surprised if that is 100% on purpose. If it's not a Batman universe thing, again, I don't know, nor do I care enough to research. But yeah, I really liked Batman Returns. I honestly, it's up there for me. Obviously, completely different from The Dark Knight and tonally, but it's up there for me as one of the best Batman movies out there.
For sure.
Which, you know, Batman, I like Jack Nicholson in it, but the rest of it's kind of bland.
Yeah.
Jack Nicholson's great, but the rest of it's good. It's just not great.
Oh, 100%.
But then Batman Returns is legitimately a great film in my opinion.
Yeah.
Then I watched...
It's just the world building in those two films alone is just fantastic.
Exactly. And a lot of the problems with Batman 1 is kind of establishing how things happened.
Yeah.
Which you kind of need to with the first film in a series. Then I watched a Albert Brooks movie called Modern Romance from 1981. It's essentially about this guy who breaks up with his girlfriend and then realizes he shouldn't have broke up with her, tries to get her back. And it's just kind of back and forth, and kind of pokes fun at the fact that people always like tend to go towards the people that they've already broken up with for whatever reason. It's a like funny movie. I wouldn't say it's Albert Brooks' best. Granted, I've only seen one other Albert Brooks movie, but it's the solid movie. But I was hoping for a little bit more after I watched Lost in America. Then I watched a movie with people from Monty Python, but not an actual Monty Python movie, called Jabberwocky. It's about this peasant who somehow finds himself trying to hunt a monster that keeps killing people, called the Jabberwocky. It's really funny. Surprisingly good fighting for like goofy fighting, but still surprisingly good fighting for a comedy.
When did that come out?
1977. I believe that was before Holy Grail. Holy Grail was 78 or 79.
So it was pretty close.
Yeah. Sorry. Holy Grail was 75. So Holy Grail was before. But yes, it's a really, really fun movie. I enjoyed it. Then I watched a movie called Piercing, which is from the director whose name I'm forgetting, who did The Eyes of My Mother, Nicholas Pesci. No, I don't think he's related to Joe Pesci, but Nicholas Pesci, who directed The Eyes of My Mother, directed this film called Piercing, which is about this guy who's like a serial killer, and he goes to kill someone, but the woman he's trying to kill is a prostitute who's really into S&M. Oh. So kind of like a back and forth between dominance with that. It's interesting. I enjoyed it. It's done in a really stylistic way, which I enjoyed. That kind of made it more light than it was, but it also gets really fucked up at times. That's on Netflix if anyone wants to check it out. Then I watched a really fucking weird Polish movie about mermaids called The Lure. The Lure. Yeah, it's about two mermaids.
Like a fishing lure.
Yeah, it's about two mermaids who become part of this like house band at a hotel or something at this club. Really weird, really powerful in some moments, but then just, in my opinion, this is just my opinion. I know a lot of people go for this. It's a little too weird at times for me to fully be sold on it. But I did enjoy it for a lot of the moments, especially the ending. I'm not going to say anything about it, but the ending's really great. But other than the two movies that we watched together on Saturday, that's all I watched. So you go on ahead, little buddy.
Hey, so one of the movies that I watched, one of the only two, V for Vendetta.
Yeah.
With you. It was crazy. I haven't seen this movie since I think you recommended it. It was either you recommended it to me or like I just was like, I know this movie's got to be good. So
it was probably me. if you didn't see it before we met, it was probably me because I
Yeah.
love that movie, and I hadn't seen it since like 2006 or 7. It's been a long time since I've seen
It was
it.
either that or it was one of the movies we did for the 365 movies in a year. Whatever, it doesn't matter. I haven't seen it in
Yeah.
a very long time. And so it was nice to see this and resituate my mind to it. And it was, oh my God, it's so
It is
good,
really good.
dude.
Yeah, and
Everything
with
about it.
with my surround sound, I forgot how good the sound design was in it. It's got
It's just random
great
knocks on the
sound design.
door. Next thing you know, we're both turning right. So it's always a hilarious time.
Exactly.
And then the other one we saw was Black Swan, which was my pick for our second watch because I was like, I haven't ever seen Black Swan. I can go for some Darren Aronofsky. And you're like, well, let's do it, Papa Glenn.
It was between that and The Fountain, and I know you've seen The Fountain, so I said, okay,
Yeah.
you can watch The Fountain another time.
I got a whole tattoo from it. It was great.
Exactly, yeah.
But we watched that. It was fantastical in every way.
Oh, yeah.
And just happened to be a Natalie Portman night accidentally.
Yeah. I hadn't seen that since it was in theaters in 2010 or 11. And I had forgotten just how good it was. Like, I knew,
Yeah.
I was telling you this, like, I knew it was good. I knew I enjoyed it. But, like, I forgot how fucking crazy it got and how, really well acted. I mean, Natalie Portman won the Oscar for it, so it was no surprise that she was good in it, but I forgot just how good she was.
Oh, yeah.
I forgot about like all the mental anguish that she went through, all the mind fuckery, if you will. It's one of those movies that like I love. It's not a movie I can watch a lot, and I just kind of forgot how good it was.
Yeah, and it definitely led us to both turn to each other and say, we got to watch Mother sometime soon again, don't we?
Oh yeah. We definitely got to rewatch Mother at some point.
So that's going to be a fun trip after that. But yeah, that's all I watched besides Highlander. So there we go.
I'm disappointed.
I spent time with you.
So we fed you tacos and you didn't even
That's true.
repay
I didn't
me.
watch another movie or
You
anything.
didn't watch another movie? How dare you? No, I'm kidding. What about news? You got any news for us this week?
I do have one little piece of news.
Is it the sad news I'm thinking of?
Is there sad news again? Oh, wait, there is sad news. Oh, no. Well, now you get to deliver that.
Okay, well, you go with your news first.
Okay, well, we've got Johnny Depp's dismissal from the Fantastic Beasts franchise marks a major career repercussion from the embattled actor. So I guess with all this shit going on with him and Amber Heard, I think Warner Brothers just kind of I'll be honest, I didn't completely read it. I'm assuming with all that, they're kind of like getting him off to like not have any like, not liability, but like anything to do with all that.
Yeah. They don't want it to affect their box office.
Yeah, which
is understandable.
Which is understandable and also mind-blowing because of all the shit that you hear about Amber Heard.
They better do the same for her.
Oh, well, that's the
with
fun
Aquaman.
part. They didn't for the Snyder Cut.
Yeah,
She's apparently going to be in the Snyder Cut. And
without, obviously, I believe that their relationship was abusive, but I think it was abusive both ways.
yeah.
I think just from what I've read, obviously I don't know them personally. I haven't been with them during any of their spats or anything. But there's just a line of stories and evidence before they even met that points to Amber Heard being emotionally abusive, and sometimes physically abusive. And then the two of them together just kind of spiraled out of control. And honestly, like, yes, absolutely get rid of Johnny Depp for Fantastic Beasts, but you also gotta you can't have
it's
the
a
double
two-way
standard.
street there.
You can't have the double standard. You got to get rid of Amber Heard too, because
Even replacing her, like that wouldn't be exactly the hardest thing to do.
yeah,
I mean,
and she's not good either. Like
yeah,
at least
I didn't
Johnny
watch
Depp
Aquaman,
is good.
so I can't say. But
Yeah.
I mean, the major piece of news here was that he only did one scene of Fantastic Beasts, but because of his contract, they still have to pay him 8 figures for that one scene, and then they kick them off. So at least he gets like compensated in a really, really good way.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's not going to help.
I
With
mean, a
any
lot
of
of
the,
that's got to go to lawyers, honestly.
Yeah.
But like again, they can't have the double standard. They got to go both ways and get rid of her as well, because they're both toxic people. At least together they were toxic, and you can't punish men when there's evidence that the woman was the same way.
And a lot of it too.
Yeah, a lot of it. Again, not condoning Johnny Depp at all, but like men are abused as well. It's not just solely with women. It obviously it leans heavily towards women, but it's not solely with women. And if we are truly going to be equal, we all need to be held responsible for our actions.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah, that's all I've got to really say. The news was really that they still had to pay him 8 figures for one scene, which I find kind of hilarious, but also at the same time, they are both all still going through all that stuff. So
that's how it goes.
That's what I've got. Now you can hit that sad button.
The sad button. So we watched a movie specifically with Sean Connery in it because he passed away last week. And many of us are aware of the SNL skit Celebrity Jeopardy, where I want to say it was Daryl Hannah.
I don't know who the actual
played Sean Connery. Anyway, one of the cast members of SNL played Sean Connery, and him and Alex Trebek in the skit had a back and forth. And
him and Will Ferrell had a back and forth.
Yeah,
I fucked your mother, Trebek.
Yes, and Trebek unfortunately has passed away this week after a I don't know if it's a long battle with cancer, but he was battling pancreatic cancer.
Yeah,
and unfortunately lost that battle. So he will definitely be missed. And yeah, he was a great host. Obviously, kept it for years. Seemed like a generally good guy.
Yeah. So there's the sad news that we somehow deliver almost a lot this year.
It's the only news we got going on right now. Anyway, so let's jump into Highlander.
From another time comes a man of great power.
Talk funny, Nash. Where are you from?
Lots of different places. A warrior of incredible strength.
You've the devil in you.
We've been kinsmen 20 years.
Connor MacLeod was my kinsman. I don't know who you are.
Because you were born different, men will fear you, try to drive you away.
An immortal Scottish swordsman must confront the last of his immortal opponent, a murderously brutal barbarian who lusts for the fabled prize. It's directed by Russell Macaulay. Oh my god, dude.
Mulcahy? Mulcahy, I think?
Mulcahy.
I think it's Mulcahy.
Directed by Russell Mulcahy. Written by Gregory Winden. Also, screenplay was by him as well. Stars Christopher Lambert, Sean Connery, Clancy Brown. Who else we got in there? We got Betty Edney.
Beatty Edney. Alan North, Roxanne Hart. John Polito was in there for a hot minute. You got quite a few people in there. Very few that I recognize, but there's definitely people in there.
So I mainly picked this because of A, Sean Connery passing, and B, because it's like a cult classic. You hear a lot about it. You hear like the great performances and how Sean Connery was so just kind of in like killer, just so charming in it and all that stuff. Like it was one of his better roles, and so I wanted to give it a watch. It was always one that was kind of like, yeah, I'll watch it at some point. But then we had the unfortunate passing of him, and I was like, well, might as well do it now. Why not?
Yeah, and now's a better time than the past, the future. I don't know.
Yeah, so we watched it.
We watched it. What did you think since you picked this? I'm gonna let you talk first.
How do I say this nicely? It was very theatrical, shall I say? It was very theatrical. It felt
like a soap opera.
It felt like more like just straight theater. Like a lot of it just felt like theater, like very, very expressive performances. Like they were on a stage and stuff like that. And it definitely, especially between Christopher Lambert and Sean Connery, and it's so weird seeing a baby-faced Clancy Brown.
Oh yeah.
And just knowing Mr. Krabs is the one, you know. There can only be one, Mr. Krabs.
He was 27 or 8 when they filmed that. Mm-hmm. Clancy Brown, so he was definitely fresh-faced, babyface killer. But yeah, he was in my opinion, he was the best part of it.
Yeah.
He was, I mean, definitely over the top. I'm not saying
Yeah,
like it's a good nuanced performance, but he was definitely the best part of it.
They for sure. I don't know if it was script or they just kind of let them do whatever they wanted, but they were definitely over the top with everything, especially the lines delivered and stuff like that. A lot of foreshadowing about the heads getting cut off multiple times throughout the movie.
Oh yeah.
So that was that was the thing. Like that's the only way they can kill these beings, these immortals, is by I guess chopping their head off, which is kind of hilarious because in the movie multiple times they're like. Clancy Brown has a confrontation with this like hotel manager, and he's like, "Stop talking to me." And then the guy's like, "I hope you get your head cut off." It's just, come on.
It was
it's just very on the nose.
I did not like this movie. It doesn't
Yeah.
even deserve the word film at all. I really didn't like it other than Clancy Brown and Sean Connery for a little bit, but it was just bad in my opinion. And it was everything I already mentioned earlier. I don't care for 80s movies. This was the worst of everything about 80s movies thrown into one. Like nonsensical fantasy plot with stupid choreography for fighting that doesn't make sense. Like someone was like repositioning themselves by doing an infinite number of handsprings. And it's not just this movie that does that. It's a whole bunch of movies that just do things that don't make sense because they quote unquote look cool, and maybe they look cool in the 80s, but they don't look cool anymore. They don't hold up.
There was like one scene that I was like, all right, that's kind of cool. It was like at the very end when like he was staying there, he's like, I don't even remember what he said. He said some Neo shit like I am the one, and then like
he said there can only be one.
Yeah, and then all the glass behind him shattered, all the windows. That was pretty
that
cool.
That part was cool,
okay.
but like it's just filled with such cheesy shit and just the worst of the 80s compiled into one movie with a terrible lead man, in my opinion, Christopher Lambert. I don't know what else he's in, but he was horrible.
He was Raiden in Mortal Kombat, which was always my favorite character in the Mortal Kombat series. And like I don't want to be harsh about it, but I've never actually liked him as an actor. In fact, every time I look at him, I wish it was just Thomas Jane.
Yeah, he did look a lot like Thomas Jane.
Which is really messed up because I'm sorry if you're listening to this, Christopher Lambert, but but
the thing is, like, I've actually liked Thomas Jane and things before. I guess I'm going through his Christopher Lambert's filmography right now. The only thing of his that I've seen that I like is Hail Caesar, and he's barely in that. And like so much so that I don't remember, but I'm trusting that he is in it.
I don't see him very well as a good leading man.
No.
Definitely a good side guy. Like
he'd be a good character actor. He's not a good lead man.
Yeah. Like Raiden. Like I don't. That's the only role I know him as. It's like Raiden. He was like a main character, but also somewhat of a side character, but like still there very prominently. And in this, it was like the same way. You're just feeling like, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And like just the character designs and everything. First off, it's the 80s, I get that, but like Sean Connery, even in the 80s, does not pass for Egyptian. Like
and they do not change his accent at all. To
their defense, they didn't brown him up, at least not noticeably, like to the point where it was offensive. But he's obviously not rejected. They gave him a little bit of mascara, or eyeliner, or whatever you want to call it. That's essentially all they did to make him like a Spaniard Egyptian man, and then his costume as well. And yeah, he didn't change his accent, which he never does. I mean, that's just the accent he always have. But it's just the character designs were terrible. Fucking Clancy Brown at some point just has safety pins holding his neck in place, which was funny. Like, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed it for being funny.
Yeah.
But it's just, it was distracting. It didn't feel like a complete world. It felt like a whole bunch of worlds. And maybe that was the idea because they are from a bunch of different times and places. But it legitimately just felt like a bunch of different worlds colliding, but not in a good way.
Yeah, it reminded me of that Queensguard or Kingsguard movie that we watched with Charlize Theron.
I didn't watch that. Old Guard?
Old Guard. What I don't remember what it was.
Yeah, I didn't watch that.
Where like there's a bunch of immortal beings and like they're the last of their kind and stuff like that. It reminded me a lot of that, but I mean, obviously that was a brand new movie. It definitely did a lot better things. Trying to understand. My brain's kind of fried today, so I'm sorry.
It's all good.
I'm wondering if he's the last one of his kind here. How are there sequels? You know?
I was thinking that same thing, and we'd have to probably watch them to understand, but I don't.
I don't want to watch them either. Hey, they don't have Sean Connery. Well, I don't think they do. And B, they don't have Mad Max Clancy Brown.
Yeah.
So what's the point?
If they do have Sean Connery or Clancy Brown, you know, they both died in very brutal ways.
Yeah.
So I'd be surprised if that were the case. But I think the best part for me for this film is when they were obviously shooting in Scotland. It was breathtaking, like the mountains of Scotland. But that has nothing to do with the movie, more so they just picked a really cool place to shoot. And I understand my bias towards the 80s is probably the main reason why I hated this. But like I just really don't like that aesthetic, the whole cheesy fantasy film with nonsensical, terrible acting. And
I mean,
just,
they could have made it better, though. Like, I mean,
they definitely could have made it better.
Not saying that they made it bad on purpose or anything. They could have.
Yeah.
They could have worked around the fact that like Sean Connery was fully giving a Scottish accent, and made him Scottish. You know, the fact that they were in Scotland, so.
Yeah.
Why not go for that?
Why does he have to be Spanish?
Why does he have to be a Spanish Egyptian man?
Yeah.
Christopher Lambert could have been taken out, honestly.
I think the only way this movie would have been... well, not the only way. A great way for this movie to have been salvaged is if Peter Jackson directed it. I don't know if he was on the circuit back then.
Yeah.
But I feel like this is a movie that he, back then in the late 80s, early 90s, would have done a great justice to.
I will say that one thing was like they did a lot of practical effects. Like that was cool. Like they did that. Like most films, they go for special effects a lot. But they did a lot of practical effects. And I mean, for the most part, they were fine. You could tell they were practical though.
Yeah.
You at least
Clancy
say they
Brown's bald head in the end was obviously fake.
Yeah.
Like there was a lot of stuff that for what is obviously either a high budget movie or they called in a lot of favors. They had a lot of small stuff like a bald cap that looked awful.
Well,
the budget for this was $16 million, which I'm gonna do some quick Googling to see what the inflation would be.
You also got to think where most of that money probably went. Think of the soundtrack.
Yeah, they had Queen.
They had Queen do the soundtrack.
I forgot that was a.
Which, I mean, was a good soundtrack. I'm like, I love Queen, but...
I don't think it fit, though.
It definitely made it cheesy. Yeah, I mean, all the songs from the soundtrack itself were great. I mean, Queen's obviously gonna kill it, but, like, all their soundtrack was just straight up Queen, basically. So, like, it was pretty rough and definitely made it a little cheesier. Like, you sit there and fully expect... But we are the champions right at the end as soon as he cuts off his head.
Wants to live forever. So the budget today would have been, this is still, I guess, mid-level budget. It would have been $38 million instead of $16 million. So while that is, I guess back then that was pretty high because we didn't really have like over $100 million budgets until probably the early 2000s.
Yeah.
That was really unheard of. And then as soon as Avatar happened, studios were just like, oh, we got to throw at least $250 million towards everything. I don't know what that voice was, but that's what you got. But back then, like 16 million, not high, not low, somewhere in a nice sweet spot. And it's just, especially with a bald cap is the easiest thing you could do. When you're a professional makeup artist, and it just looks horrible. And I don't blame Clancy Brown a bit. He's the saving grace of this film.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot that could have saved this movie. I see why It's a cult classic.
Yeah.
It's got the hokiness. It's got the hokiness. It's got the. They definitely could have worked on the sword play is another thing. It seems like they were just like, hey, go for it. Just act like you're fighting each other with the sword. I mean, what's cool about the sword play and or just movies in general now is that they will take the actors, they will put them in these classes, be like, hey, just do your thing, baby, and they'll be like, we're doing our thing, baby, and they learn, they do the things, and it all looks pretty practical in the movies now. I mean, they could have maybe done a class instead of just like standing in front of each other, barely moving their hips, just going ding, ding, ding. The soundtrack, I mean, the soundtrack definitely helps the hokiness. I mean, anybody who loves the 80s movies, there's a sex scene in it. People will definitely... I saw boobies. This is like the 6th film in a movie we saw, film in a couple weeks. We saw
titties
boobies.
am I seeing?
Whose titties am I seeing today? And I actually was surprised. I was like, wow, I didn't see any boobies. And then boom, there's a sex scene. Like, well,
right there.
There's the titties that I'm seeing. As like a cult classic, I understand why a lot of people love it. I'm not a part of that group, honestly. It was just very, very cheese. Not in a good way.
Yeah, this to me is on par with Clash of the Titans, where it's an 80s movie that for some reason is loved, and I legitimately don't understand it. I get you understand it. I personally, beyond the proud nature of Scottish people, I don't see why anyone would like this. Clancy Brown obviously is good in that. He's a good villain. The first time that our hero, fucking Connor McLeod, the first time he gets stabbed, he doesn't even try. He just lifts his sword up and holds it there for like 5 seconds, and then boom, I'm stabbed.
He's
of course you're gonna get stabbed.
No
one wants to fight me. And then he just lets the guy stab him. It's like, well, no wonder no one wanted to fight. It's a boring ass fight. And it's just... I mean, I think the most impressive part, if I'm going to say anything about this, is the final battle at the end. Completely over the top with all the slashing of metal and sparks and everything in the water. Completely over the top, but it was the most entertaining part of it for me, beyond just Clancy Brown's performance.
Yeah.
And it'd
be for sure cool to see a remake of this and today. Because now you can show the strength of most of these guys, of how strong Clancy Brown was supposed to be and stuff like that, instead of just what they did with the walls.
No, he picks people up by the throat.
Yeah, and the walls when he smacks them with a sword, but when he hits Sean Connery with a fucking sword, it's just like a scratch.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, doesn't make any goddamn sense, but I guess that's the point, is for it not to make sense.
Yeah.
But I don't really have anything too much to say. I really hated this.
Yeah.
Our judgment's probably not going to be no surprise, at least on my end.
Oh, I think I already spilled out the beans.
Yeah, so should we just say it?
Might as well.
Yeah, this does not make it onto the shelf.
This is not the one. Oh.
Oh, sorry. If there can only be one, there should only be one and not 3. I wish that tagline or saying mattered towards... Actually, I don't know. Those movies might be good. This one's horrible, though.
Maybe in due time, if we get requests for this, maybe we'll see. But till then, this is not the one, and probably will remain not the one.
Yes.
As long as we don't see the rest.
Yes. So Highlander does not make it onto the shelf with the likes of Apostle and Handmaiden. That brings us to our plugs for this week. Glenjamin Bunn, since it is your week, you go first.
So I am a huge fan of Conan O'Brien. Always loved him. He was my favorite talk show host of all time, undeniably, and all that funny stuff. And Facebook and its algorithm have just completely bent me over and just shoved some Conan right up me, if you know what I'm saying. Just... So I constantly get these just interviews with people in Conan O'Brien and his older stuff, since obviously Corona's a thing and they can't really do what they used to do. So they just show all the old ones, all the fun ones. Yep. So on YouTube, I was like, I'm going to watch all of them instead of this one video a day thing. So I got top funniest Conan moments on YouTube by Simplest Truth.
Please. Yes, first last name is Rosenberg.
Excuse me, Kramer. How dare you? I'm trying to conduct an investigation here. Hang up the phone!
But look at this beautiful view of downtown.
Look at this fake view.
You idiots! You did the wrong thing! What have you done?
Ooh.
It's like 11 minutes. I actually watched like 5 different videos, but like this is the one with the most likes and everything on it, most views. His interviews are so funny. He's such a comedic genius, and he's so humble about it. He's like, no, I don't think I'm funny at all. You guys do, and that's crazy to me. And,
Yeah.
all these interviews here, they show the best moments of all of it.
Yeah. So that's on YouTube, you said?
That is on YouTube.
So that is Glenn's pick. My pick this week, we're going to get a little stab at a giant here. So I'm not sure how everyone feels about Disney. I am not in good standing with Disney at the moment. They're trying to buy out pretty much every studio they already have with Marvel, Fox, a whole bunch of others. And they are also moving towards primarily streaming, which once theaters do open is going to hurt them significantly. So Disney is really just fucking shit up, in my opinion, and I'm not a fan of that. So we're going to plug a little video called How Disney Ruined Culture on Wisecrack on YouTube. It kind of goes into the history of Disney and how their greediness and their kind of abolishment. They kind of abolished the whole thing where things become public domain after so many years. So pretty much nothing's ever going to become public domain anymore because of Disney. And that sucks for culture. Public domain is great for culture, but then it goes into more about how them buying out pretty much everything and then changing it to fit the Disney mold is ruining things. So it's a 20-minute long video, 19 minutes 14 seconds, but it's a very compelling video. If you are being upset that I'm even bringing this up, watch it and just kind of see what Disney has done that has been bad for arts in general.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that I dislike it. I love the Disney parks. I like some of the stuff that they release, but their corporate nature is really bad for art.
I'm definitely gonna watch that because Disney's really just been kind of not been good as of the last many years. I mean, Pixar's is doing good and all, but they're also like holding them back from what they can actually do and stuff like that. And
their whole 2 sequels for every
Star
new movie,
Wars and everything like that.
Yeah.
They're just holding. I can't even wait to see what Fox and
yeah,
and all that's gonna be like.
And to kind of give a little buzzer words or whatever for people, when Martin Scorsese talked about how Marvel movies are not film or cinema, they're amusement parks rides, he's talking about the Disney style of Marvel movies where they're cookie cutter and don't really do anything. Yes, they're fun to watch, but they don't provide any substance. That is what he's talking about, and that is kind of what Disney is all about. So that is How Disney Ruined Culture on Wisecrack on YouTube.
Today, I've got Disney on my brain, and not just because my nostalgic mom keeps sending me this photo. Aww. And who can blame me? They basically own or license everything I love and everything I hate. And that's not to mention the new season of The Mandalorian, because they own Star Wars. Also X-Men. That's right, they own the X-People. And just take a gander at the top grossing films last year, and you'll be greeted by one name and one name only. See, from Endgame to Aladdin, from Frozen 2 to Toy Story 4, Disney made 7 of the top 10 highest grossing films of 2019.
Okay.
So those are our plugs for this week. It is Netflix Roulette Week, so we are going to get into that. For everyone who is unaware, the way this works is I spin a very real physical wheel that then lands on a film that is on Netflix, and we spin it 3 times, and then we pick the one out of those 3 that we want to watch most. So without any further ado, I'm going to do the first real spin on the physical wheel that is definitely not a website called realgood.com. And I'm going to spin it now. That was a real sound effect. And this one is called Feminists. What were they thinking? Interesting.
2018, so we're in the clear
2018,
on that.
Yep. It is a
Netflix documentary.
Netflix documentary directed by Johanna Demetrakis or Demetrakis. It is featuring, because it's a documentary, Lauren Anderson, Phyllis Chesler, Judy Chicago, and Funmilola Fagbamila. And it is about feminists. What were they thinking? Takes aim at our current culture, revealing all too vividly the urgent need to continue change. Or for continued change, excuse me. So that is our first spin. Second spin coming up. Via. It is from 2017. or 2016 on IMDb, but on Netflix it's listed as 2017. It is directed by Akin Omotoso. Looks like it's South African. It's a very long synopsis. We'll see. It is about 3 people board the train bound for Johannesburg. Strangers, each on their own mission with a simple task to complete and in search of family to help them. But when they are betrayed by the very people whose protection they sought, they find themselves trapped in the city, invisible and alone. I'm going to cut it off there because that is a good place to put it.
There's a whole paragraph and a half right there.
Yep. So that is Vaya, a South African thriller, it looks like. Spin number 3, Vodka Diaries.
Okay, Netflix.
It's from India. It is directed by Kushal Srivastava, written by Vabhav Bajpai, Manisha Korde, and 2 others. I'm going to respect them and not try to butcher their name. Starring KK Menon, Rema Sen, Mandira Betty, and Sharib Hashmi. It is about in the misty town of Manali, ACP. Ashwini Dixit attempts to solve a series of mysterious murders happening in a single night, which might be connected to the nightclub Vodka Diaries. That is 2 hours. Vaya is
2 hours.
2 hour 55, 2 hours, and then Feminist, What Are They Thinking, is an hour and 26. I am personally leaning towards Vaya.
We haven't done an African film yet, so
Yeah,
for sure, I'm leaning that as well.
so yeah, that it seems really compelling too. It's got the highest rating at 7.7. I have seen one South African film before, not including District 9 because that speak English, but where they speak the native languages of South Africa.
South Africa.
So yeah, let's check out a South African film if you're cool with that.
All right.
So we are going to watch Vaya. That is on Netflix. Let me just click watch now just to verify that it is indeed on there. Yes, it is on there. So Vaya on Netflix is our pick for next week.
Singaxoxa. Ya, singakhuluma ngalokhu nalokhuya. Uma ungamela kude uzomshweba. Hey wena, ngilalele yini? Ngoba sikhe ekhaya phela lapha. Singakhuluma ukuthi indoda iyagwazwa lapha. Igwazelwe nje 5 rand kuphela.
Xolo bhuti. Ingabe khona indawo yofihla ikhanda eseduzana?
Yabona ifune imali. Siningi indawo zokuhlala.
Fanele ukuthi umpadreke jo. Kumele wenze sure ukuthi ubone idimas lakhe.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. As always, you can check out our website, KeystoneFilmReview.com. On Instagram, Keystone_Film_Review. Twitter, Keystone_Film. Facebook, Keystone Film Review. YouTube, Keystone Film Review. And on Letterboxd, I am Mike, KFR.
And I am Glenn, KFR.
And that will do it until next week when we watch a South African thriller. Well, it says drama. Who knows? Vaya con Dios.
There can be only one.
Yes. Bye.